start rolling in right now, and look, they are, which is so
Amazing.
exciting. Yeah, so I think we'll just give people a couple of minutes to start trickling in, which is so exciting. We had such an incredible RSVP to this, and I think, Gabrielle, it's because of you.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Shucks. Thanks, guys.
We're so I'm particularly excited for this one, obviously, because I feel spoiled that I got to chat with you. So I'm very excited.
I'm really excited too. I mean, that was so much fun. Like, and I'm glad we came up with some ideas.
Some usable ideas.
So we'll just give people a couple more minutes before we dive in, but then we'll get started. So all good things. Gabrielle, are you in New York or LA right now?
I am currently in New York, but was in LA as of yesterday. So,
oh my gosh.
yeah,
I saw you posted on Instagram. You did some fittings with clients and it was beautiful.
Yeah, I was in LA for 2 client fittings this weekend, and then did a little shopping with one of the brides to pull together like all the final details. So her getting ready look, her brunch.
So fun.
What else did we shopped? I couldn't even tell you what else we shopped for. A little bit of honeymoon. Yeah.
Just that's so inclusive. I love that.
Yeah, I need that for sure.
All right. Well, why don't a couple of people are still trickling in, but we will, I think, dive in and get started so we can use the most of our time here, right?
For sure.
Okay. So, quick little introduction. My name is Lindsey Shaktman. I am a lead planner and designer on the Maven House team. We are so excited to have you here. I am personally based in Portland, Maine, and Sarah's down in Newport. She'll tell you a little bit about herself, but we're really excited today to be joined by Gabrielle. She, as we were just chatting, is based in New York City and Los Angeles, and she can dive into a little bit about what she does. But as you all saw on our promos for our webinar today, she is a renowned bridal stylist, does all of that shopping that feels so overwhelming for clients and family members to do. And so today we're going to talk about what Gabrielle does, and we're going to see Sarah turn from a planner to a client. She is a 2022 bride. And so we'll see her utilize Gabrielle's services in real life. And then, of course, we have our chat open. So please feel free to populate any sort of questions, write to us. If you have questions that need clarifying, just let us know. So I'll pass it off to Sarah, I think, to kick off a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm so excited. Like I said, as we've maybe touched on in some of these other webinars, I am myself a 2022 bride that is not a great bride. I'm not doing well at being a bride. I'm trying my best, but it's hard to sort of separate. So this particular area, specifically bridesmaids, dresses, and styling, has been something that I've been challenged with and been spending a lot of time on. So we felt like, if I was struggling with it, a lot of other people would be too. So that was kind of how today's topic was born. And we feel so fortunate to have Gabrielle here with us because she is an expert in all the things. And so I would love to just kind of pass it off to you, Gabrielle, to just tell us and, tell our listeners here about what you do and kind of your services in more detail, and just kind of give an overview of all things styling.
Perfect. Well, I'm Gabrielle Hurwitz. As we've mentioned by now, I do bridal. Well, I like to say wedding fashion styling just because it's a little more inclusive. But if you're thinking Google SEO, it's bridal fashion styling. I started my company in 2018. Prior to that, I was at Style Me Pretty for 3 years, where I oversaw original editorial content. So all the fashion advice and planning content, and also all of the social media at Style Me Pretty for a year and a half.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot. And so I've always, though, loved wedding dresses. Like ever since I was a little girl, I would buy bridal magazines at like my local Barnes and Noble. and pretend like I had a cousin who just got engaged and that's why I was 10 years old buying bridal magazines, and then would just like go through every single page and like look at all the dresses and be like, okay, well, I would like this one at this venue and this one at this venue. And so it's just like, I'm that person, that like annoying person who's dreamt of weddings her whole life. And so when I was at Stylist Pretty, I like saw this need. I mean, it's a luxury, it's not a need. This niche for bridal styling for people who are planning these big, elaborate weddings and want to dress the part for each and every event. Because to me, the fashion is just as important to the design of an event as the flowers, as the color palette, as, I mean, anything really. And without the fashion element being right, the whole wedding kind of flops. And that's my personal bias, obviously. But I just remember like being at Style Me Pretty and seeing these beautiful, beautiful weddings. And then you get to a picture of the couple and you see the bride in her dress and you're just like, well, that was a miss.
Yeah.
And so I never want people to like feel that way about my clients' weddings. So that's part of it. But also I think like it is such an important, I mean, I'm not one to say like it's the most important day of your life, because who am I to judge that for someone else? But I do think it's probably the most important garment you'll ever wear in your life. So making sure that it is something that you feel really confident and comfortable in is something I feel really passionate about too.
I love that you said that about the fashion being such a big part of the design, because we definitely have those conversations with our couples as well, and just in reference to that. But I think the other point that we should make is how many photos in your album, in your gallery, are of the people and the bride and the groom and the couple and the families and all of that. And so I agree with you that if that fashion can carry on your theme and your design and all of that stuff, I mean, it just tells so much of the story of the day. And so, yeah, it is super, super important.
And I think to that point, like at the end of the day, like obviously all the details matter to the experience of the day of and your memories of the day of, but the photos you're framing are the photos of people. Yeah. You're not going to frame a photo of just the cake. I mean, maybe you will, but most people are not going to frame a photo of just their cake and like have it on their mantle. But the photos of you and your partner, like both wearing clothes, are going to be passed down from generation to generation. So like having that element perfect is important to me, at least.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So with that, I mean, obviously we know the importance of the fashion surrounding your wedding day, and also with that, the wedding weekend events you had touched on over the weekend. You went shopping for a shower, for the honeymoon, and for all of these different moments. So what would you say are like the advantages of using a stylist, and how does like that moment come to fruition for the client?
I think it's similar to the advantages of using a planner. I mean, I think about every detail and making sure that each look is cohesive yet unique, so that when you look at them all together, there's context and a story, and we hit on different aspects of the client's personality. Maybe we go like a little sexier for the rehearsal dinner, and she wants something a little more timeless and classic for the wedding ceremony itself, but then something like super fun to dance in, and like sweet and flirty for brunch. Like just hitting on all those different aspects of the personality, so you don't feel even more pressure to get like the ceremony look right, because you have all these opportunities to get it right. So yeah, it's just, that's kind of one of the key things. And I think also working with a stylist gives you access to different designers and boutiques, and kind of gets you the VIP experience, even if you're not a celebrity. For example, like, I don't know if you guys are experiencing this, seamstresses are booked out right now, like insanely booked out. And so I had reached out to a few salons a few tailors for seamstress referrals for her. Her wedding's not until October, and I got like 5 responses back that they're fully booked for the whole year. And one of them, it's insane. One of them emailed me back and she was like, so sorry, we're booked. And then I got an email like 5 minutes later being like, sorry, that was my assistant for you. Like, we'll make time.
Okay,
So like,
that's amazing.
yeah, it's just like getting those little like, I mean, that sounds so bratty of me to say. I'm not special. I'm not important, but I have those relationships that will help my clients get what they need. Also working on like custom changes, or if there's a designer that a bride really, really wants, but the dress is located like in Israel, for example, like for a client, I had a dress flown in to a boutique local to her so we could try it on. So just kind of like different touch points of ultimately like making the process smoother for her.
Yeah, I feel like when people speak about access, they're actually speaking about relationships. And it's, you know, it's not so much your Rolodex of, oh, I know that these people exist, but it's that you have these existing relationships. And that's really where that access takes you and your clients to the next level.
Yeah, I think, I mean, most of my friends these days are in the wedding industry, and a lot of them are in the bridal sphere of things. So having those relationships helps me get greater access for my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can definitely relate to that too. Like there are partners that we have relationships with that help, even if it's willingness to put a soft hold on a date where, you know, for certain things or things like that, yeah, again, doesn't sound bratty. I think it sounds like, you know, you developed and established yourself in the industry, and it is a perk for your clients, and that helps to reinforce the importance of hiring this type of service.
So I love that. Now, before we get into our live styling session with Sarah, I know that we have some other questions that popped up. Like, where are some places you have been loving shopping, or like some emerging designers that we should keep our eyes out for? Kind of like, what do you see going on in the styling industry?
I think there's definitely been a shift over the past 2 years, kind of away from like the fluffy, romantic, like soft, super feminine, towards like a little bit cooler, edgier, sleeker. And so Australian designers are doing it really, really well. Like Tony Matichevsky's doing really cool things. Helen O'Connor's a new designer that I'm really liking. She used to be she founded and was the creative director of Thoroughly for a long time, and then switched to her own namesake brand. Danielle Frankel is not Australian, she's American, but she's doing like the coolest things ever right now. And I would like kill for any of my brides to wear her, because I just think her gowns are so special. But I think we're kind of going towards a less is more look. But that's not for everyone. And I think like that's where it can be kind of tricky to talk about trends, because at the end of the day, like it is someone's wedding, and a wedding dress is so personal and so unique to them that like, yes, it might be trendy to wear like a sleek little slip dress, but if that's not a client's personality, like then we're not touching it, you know?
Yeah.
But that's when like you can pull in like the rehearsal dinner for those trendy moments, and do something a little more Carolyn Bessette Kennedy.
I was just gonna say, I love what you said before about like the different looks and the different kind of personalities for all the different outfits, because I think it is a huge commitment to be like, this dress is defining me for my whole, you know, potentially like wedding weekend or whatever. But I like the idea that you can kind of have different identities throughout the weekend and kind of have different outfits and different styles, so that you can showcase all of those things that you love and not feel so, I don't know, pressured to have like this heavy decision. Because I think, you know, it's obviously a big decision either way, but to know you have the flexibility to bring in some of those other moments, I feel like takes a little bit of the pressure off, that you can kind of showcase those different aspects.
Totally. And I think that pressure is what causes brides to second guess their decisions so often. That and social media and like the constant influx of like new designers and new collections, and seeing other people get married, and then you start questioning, well, did I make the right decision? And so like now that most of my clients are having multi-day events, and so there's opportunity there to pursue different things for different events.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about your ideal client and who, who is commonly reaching out to you for your services? Maybe even touch on kind of the commitment level to working with you. And I know this is a luxury service, obviously, so we want to be, transparent about that aspect as well.
Yeah, I think there are different like levels of bridal styling. I think it's becoming more common. My client is definitely falling into that luxury level. They're spending on average, I'd say their investment in fashion for the whole weekend is probably like $30,000 to $40,000, including like jewelry, accessories, shoes, garments, what have you. But like I fully acknowledge that that's not most people's budget for their fashion. Like that's a lot of people's budget for their whole wedding weekend.
Sure.
So I work with clients in an ideal world on a full service level. So I won't, and again, in an ideal world, would not work with someone who already had their dress, just because it's harder to build that relationship with someone and build that rapport to where we can work together for everything else. So I work with clients from the beginning. Once they have a planner, a date, and a venue, that's kind of when I jump in and work with them to shop, put together mood boards, act as their concierge through the shopping experience, accompany them to all their appointments and walk them through the process, and then work with them through accessories, hair and makeup ideas, etc. And we kind of repeat that process for everything. Rehearsal dinner, welcome party, bachelorette, engagement session, honeymoons, mothers, bridesmaids, grooms, groomsmen, anyone that needs an outfit for the wedding, I will help with. But it starts with the bride.
I love that. I love how kind of like all inclusive it is, and the moments of touching on hair and makeup and those other like jewelry moments to really make sure that that look and that experience is complete. I know we had some questions come in early via Instagram. We have some questions rolling in now. So I think let's touch on these if we don't mind, and we'll kind of continue on and dive in.
Perfect.
So one of the questions we got via Instagram was, how do I get a high fashion bridesmaid look on a budget? So talking like $200 to $300 range.
I think we need to be really transparent about this. I think we're seeing a lot of mismatched bridesmaids dresses happening right now, which is so chic and special and is my favorite way to do bridesmaids. But I think a lot of times people are seeing inspiration photos and they don't realize that like a bridesmaid spent upwards of $2,000 on her dress, and most people's friends are not willing to spend $2,000 on a dress. And like, I don't blame them. I wouldn't spend $2,000 on a bridesmaid's dress. So mismatched is like definitely trickier, just because a lot of the dresses you want to use for it aren't necessarily going to be affordable for your friends. Unless they're willing to spend that kind of money. But I think looking at like ready to wear sites, like Shopbop, Revolve, sometimes Intermix, and especially at their sale sections, you can sometimes find great pieces that will work for that mismatch look. Reformation, though, those prices do, if you're looking at the maxi dresses or gowns, they're going to be upwards of $300. And then also like Rent the Runway can be a great option if you have friends who are willing to rent something twice, the first time around to make sure like it fits, and then the second time around for the actual event. But you do have, I think Rent the Runway is risky if your friends are not willing to rent something twice, which is why people who have like a Rent the Runway Unlimited membership, like it's great for them.
Like us,
the entirety of the Maven House team.
Yeah, Maven House, we're big Rent the Runway people. But all those things you just said, I feel like were the struggles that I was going through. Totally was like looking for that, that really high fashion look and I was very attracted to all of those dresses and all of that stuff, but obviously being sensitive to your friends' budgets and all of that stuff. So I think that's really good tips for like what you just said, the ready to wear kind of thing. But I think that bride should be prepared that that's a lot of research and it's a lot of time. Like I think
it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that Sarah, you and I have talked offline about is like, if your friends do have like a $200 to $300 maximum price point for their bridesmaids dresses, which is like a totally healthy budget for a bridesmaids dress.
Totally.
Maybe instead of gifting them like a matching PJ set they're never going to wear again, or like a pair of earrings they're never going to wear again, maybe you tell them like, I'm going to put $150 or $200 towards your bridesmaid's dress, and then you can kind of get the look you want. And they get a dress hopefully they love.
Absolutely. I mean,
I
I
love
took that idea from Gabrielle, and I was like, I can totally see myself doing that, because it just gets you to sort of that next tier, like we talked
It
about.
does.
You have a little more access to some of the dresses that might be more in line with what you're seeing on Pinterest or on the blogs or things like that you're trying to replicate.
And let's be honest, like no one needs another silk robe.
Right. Right.
Like it's going in the trash after the wedding, probably.
Right.
It's true. We have a question from one of our attendees here for you, Gabrielle. It says, do you have their wedding design to pull inspo from, or does that come after? So, you know, of course, all of our Maven House clients who are working with us in our partnership 2 or 1 get a full design experience with us. And so are you working with people through that design element as well?
I love getting design from the planners and designers, because I think so much of the fashion has to speak to the design of the wedding. And like if you're having a super modern wedding at like the Parker Palm Springs, for example, like a fluffy princess dress doesn't make sense there. Like it just doesn't.
Right.
So at the very least, I mean, I will always reach out to the planner and be like, hey, do you have like a mood board or an overall direction that you're going in? Because I know like you're probably not designing the actual event until a few months out, just because of rentals and availability and things like that. But I definitely look to the planners for cues on the overall design, just because, again, I want the fashion to speak to the design of the wedding and to complement it. I view it kind of as a partnership. So I don't get involved in design because I know my place and I know that's not it. But I do want the fashion to speak to it. So I definitely want to be not involved, but like aware of the design as it progresses and as it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, like we're thinking about that when we're putting together design decks too. Like even, you know, sometimes we're working with couples or that have chosen their fashion already, and sometimes we're not. So, I mean, even if they're not working with a stylist like yourself, you know, we're kind of high level, sometimes pointing them in the right direction, because like you said, at a particular venue, a certain style dress just isn't right. And we are thinking about that high level, like, does this all go together? How does the fashion integrate into the design, and kind of steering them in at least a general direction if they need it and they feel like they want that level of support.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to like bridesmaids dresses, I definitely want to know what the design is, just for color palette purposes. And are we going more boho? Are we going more modern? Are we going more romantic and whimsical? Like those things will all speak to, I mean, all the fashion of the wedding. And maybe like there's a really fabulous detail that you're pulling in for the stationery or invitations, and maybe I can pick that up with accessories, you know, like I can't think of an example right now, but like a certain pop of color or something we can pull in somewhere.
Yeah, kind of completing that storyline throughout the full wedding experience. Yeah. So another question we had was, what do you think are some of the best places to find bridal midi dresses? So thinking rehearsal dinner looks or a small legal ceremony.
Depending on what price point you're wanting to stick to, because obviously that will be a key factor. I love Moda Operandi. I love Net-a-Porter, Matches Fashion, Farfetch, My Teresa, the Outnet, which is kind of like the clearance section of Net-a-Porter. Those can all be great resources. I mean, obviously the department stores. I think people were paying attention last year, and by people I mean designers, and they realized there was a huge need for white dresses, little white dresses. So I think designers are really working hard to like incorporate that into their collections moving forward, because it's such a huge opportunity for them. So you can kind of find them anywhere if you're willing to like do the research and look.
Yeah, I saw Intermix just came out with a new like bridal edit that they're doing with all accessories and all different looks and fashion, which I feel like you said, a lot of places are kind of picking up on that, which is helpful if you're not, you know, you don't have access to a stylist, kind of like doing a little bit of that research and figuring out like there are some curated collections that you can kind of breeze through and they're good
Yeah.
about suggesting things that go together and stuff like that, I think is helpful for someone who maybe isn't working with a planner or a stylist.
Totally. Even like Saks has like the bridal edit, where it's like for the bride and everything white is kind of curated in this little section. So I think if you do a little digging, you can find some great pieces.
Absolutely. So now, speaking about digging and finding great pieces, I know this is something that many of our clients come to us about. And the question is, where do I find a mother of a bride dress that does not scream mall?
Yeah. Mother of the bride is rough. Really, really, really rough. In fact, this morning I had 2 mothers of the bride texting me like 15 different links and they were all hideous. I think the key is, oh God, this is getting recorded and posted somewhere. I think the key is not to look at mother of the bride. Like erase those keywords from your memory, and look at evening. Look at evening gowns. Do not look like literally anything with the label mother of the bride. 9 times out of 10 is going to be horrible.
Yep.
So I think look at evening wear. I think that's going to be a much better bet. Even sometimes, like, depending on the time frame you're working on, even sometimes like bridesmaids dresses can go mother of the bride if they're just solid, and like a lot of moms want their arms covered. So there are a lot of options with sleeves in bridesmaids land. And with the right accessories, I think can look less bridesmaid.
Yes.
But I really think it's about just ignoring the label mother of the bride and really like focusing on evening wear.
I agree. I feel like so many of our brides and even their moms that we work with reach out and they're like, I'm not an old mother of the bride. I don't want to wear like that shawl thing. And like, I don't want to look like old and matronly. So we always give that same advice. Like, just look for a dress that you love. It's not, there's no such thing as a mother of the bride dress. You are a mother of the bride and you're wearing a dress. So that's really, that covers your bases.
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of, there's just like this misconception that like as the mother of the bride, you need to be in like a matching set or something with a sequin or lace top and then a plain skirt. And that's just going to make the mother look older than she is and age her in a way that she doesn't want, quite frankly. So I think just like being open-minded and being willing to look outside the box is going to be key for mothers.
Absolutely. I love that advice. I think it's really going to resonate with people. And I think this is also a great time to kind of pivot our discussion into our much anticipated live styling session between you and Sarah.
Yay.
Yeah. As a reminder, again, Sarah's a 2022 bride. She's getting married later this summer. She and Gabrielle had a minute to catch up prior to this call and chat about Sarah's design and feeling for her wedding. And so we're going to have a styling moment.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to get ready to share my screen. But what I typically do for bridesmaids is, depending on the direction we're going in, Sarah's going for like a mismatched look. What I'll do is I'll put together a mood board that kind of informs the general direction that we want to go in. And then it is a pretty involved process where I reach out to every single bridesmaid with a little questionnaire and ask them their favorite designers, their favorite necklines, how they describe their personal style, what features they really love to highlight, what features they don't feel as confident about. And then based on that, I put together just a curated edit for each girl within their ideal price point and everything, obviously keeping in mind the bride's preferences. For the purposes of this live styling session, we're going to kind of like skip the mood board portion, but I will show you like some images that Sarah and I kind of walked through as like when she showed me her design for the wedding and we talked, like this is kind of the vibe I was getting. Ignoring like a few of these dresses that feel like outliers. This is just, again, like a general direction. But the mismatch look where it looks like intentional and cohesive, but still effortless. This is probably like too metallic. Like you're not going to see anyone at Sarah's wedding in head to toe sequins, I don't think. But in terms of color palette, like a more neutral look. And then Rocky Barnes's wedding, I think, is a really great example of like mismatch done really well. Okay, and then so what I put together, Sarah has 4 bridesmaids. Let me.
And if any of them are watching, we did not do the questionnaire portion of this, so they're probably like, you didn't do that for me, but
Yeah, we skipped a few
we
steps.
skipped that because I just answered for them.
Okay, so this was the first grouping of 4 that I put together if we wanted to go with a more monochromatic look, still interesting and unique. We also talked about kind of being over the slinky cowl neck slip dresses that have become really popular in the past few years, but maybe still incorporating some of that silk satin just for textural reasons because it is a nice contrast. So the jumping off point for me for this was this Ula Johnson dress on the left because I think it's fabulous. It's so good. And it has these like little hints of like pink and copper in it. So again, that was kind of the jumping off point. And then from that, wanted to play off of the different textures and patterns so that it felt, again, intentional and cohesive, but still special. So we have a slip dress that has a different neckline then it's a little more unexpected. This fun like tulle number, which feels a little, I mean, tulle is like often like a little more princessy. I thought this was a little cooler than that. And then I thought this stripe was really visually interesting.
Yeah, I loved that because I gave Gabrielle the direction of like, I initially was thinking floral, and I feel like I got myself a little bit like pigeonholed with that thinking. So I sort of said to her, go for whatever pattern. And I really needed a good, outside perspective because I was feeling very like going in on myself. So it was really helpful to see something like a stripe because I would never pick that. I would never be attracted to it. But when she put it together, I was like, oh my gosh, this totally works. And like, I want to wear that Ula dress. Like I want to wear that dress. So I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but obsessed.
I think too, like with mismatched, it can be a little hard, especially with 4 people, because like each dress has to really hit and be interesting and good on its own. Whereas like when I've had brides who have like 12 people bridal parties, like there's a little more room for error, so to say, because like if one person's dress is like kind of a dud, it's like okay because they're going to be like mixed in with everyone else, so you're not really going to notice.
Yeah.
Whereas oh, sorry, go ahead.
But I was just going to say also, because one of my bridesmaids is also officiating, I feel like that also adds extra pressure because she's going to be standing up, the entire time. And so we just want to make sure that everyone is a really, really strong look. So.
Yeah. Okay. So then the second look, I went off of that floral theme, but wanted to do a little bit of an unexpected floral and not something super sweet. When you were describing your venue, it sounded really like natural. And I know the mood board you showed me for the wedding, there's a lot of like earth tones, and it's not like florals in the kind of way you think about florals traditionally, where it's like sweet and romantic. It's a little more organic florals. So Shona Joy is an Australian designer I really love. And I think that can be a trick for mismatched bridesmaids too, is find one designer who does a bunch of different patterns or silhouettes, and then you kind of know that they can work together because they're all designed by the same person. So inherently there is like a connection there. Yeah. So obviously one of these is long. I think it can be fun to play with different lengths. Maybe that's your maid of honor who's in a longer dress. Maybe it's the officiant. But I think it can be visually interesting to play with different lengths and different hemlines. You'll notice like one of them has a handkerchief hem. One of them, well, these two on the left and middle are slightly different lengths, different sleeves, different necklines. They all kind of like, obviously they're mismatched, but I think the colors work together. So this is just like a different take on florals.
And I loved this too. I also love the one all the way on the right the most because I feel like it kind of gives me the vibes of the Ula dress on the first page too. But I was really excited about this because I felt like, again, this just looks so fresh and so different, and being like, even though I personally only know the Shona Joy dresses that are the more like streamlined bridesmaids dresses. So I was really excited when I saw these because these looked really fresh to me, and I wouldn't necessarily look at them and think, oh, those are the Shona bridesmaids dresses, you know, like they're just more of a ready to wear look.
And there's definitely a world, I think, where you can like mix these two together.
I was going to say the same thing. That was going to be one of my questions to you is, do you think there's a world in which these two can blend and become like a crossover option?
Absolutely. I think you can definitely like hybrid these two together. I think, for example, like the colors in this dress right here would blend really nicely with the Ula Johnson. I think this mimics the Ula really nicely. I think any of these, because I know the Ula is kind of like our hero piece, if you will. And I think there's definitely a world where you can mix and match the different styles because they're all within the same color family.
Totally. So maybe I will do a version of that.
And I think there's like different price points. Not so much with the Shona Joy because they're kind of all the same price, but definitely like this one, the Ula Johnson's more, that would probably be like a maid of honor situation where maybe you're supplementing that even more. But yeah, I think there's a way to like, that's one of the perks of mismatched is I've had bridal parties who one bridesmaid, when I ask like what price point would you be comfortable with, she'll tell me like, oh, I'd spend up to $1,000 because based on like the mood board, I will definitely get use out of this dress again.
Totally.
I have other weddings I need to go to, I'll wear it again as a guest. Or you have like bridesmaids who have a lot going on in their lives right now and they want to spend closer to like $200, $300. So it's a great way to be like respectful of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so excited about all of these. Honestly, it just made me like, it was a weight off of my shoulders. And like I said, just a fresh perspective on all of the endless research I had been doing. So yeah, so thankful for your help on this.
Of course.
So I think if anyone has any last minute questions based on, the style session we just saw, it's a little glimpse into what Gabrielle does, obviously on a pretty smaller scope with just the bridesmaids. We know that she does everything from brides, grooms, parents, guests if needed. So I think there's a lot of services that we didn't even tap into today. So if you have any questions, please just feel free to populate them in the chat. As a reminder, this is being recorded and we will upload it onto the Maven House YouTube account later this afternoon. So you can always come back to it, watch again, see what those dresses were again, and share with your friends. Or if we have brides here, share with your wedding party. So a lot of options. Sarah, did you as a client have how are you feeling?
Well, I feel so much better, quite honestly. Like I already told Gabrielle, I'm like, I need all the links because I feel like that took such a weight off my back. I also think something that we didn't really touch on that I found was a struggle is I was trying to look for summer dresses in the winter. And if you're going this ready to wear route, you're not going to find a lot. So I think also taking the pressure off of yourself, like, okay, I can wait until spring, summer stuff comes out and start your search then. If you're having a summer wedding, for example, like you're going to be swimming upstream if you're looking in the winter.
I think that's a really good point, and I'm glad you brought it up. If you're doing the mismatch look, you're most likely looking at ready to wear versus traditional bridesmaids. Traditional bridesmaids have like a 6-month lead time kind of minimum. Whereas like if you're doing the ready to wear, you're kind of working on like a 3 to 4 month lead time.
Yeah.
Because the collections won't hit until like the season before. Which is a reason why a mismatch like isn't necessarily for everyone, because if you're super type A and worried about like timing and stuff, like it's not going to be a good fit for you. But I think, yeah, it's just important to keep in mind. I also would say like, if you're a planner and your client wants a mismatch look, or if you're a bride, I think like, even if you don't have a stylist, you can put together like a mood board for your bridesmaids and kind of like a color story and kind of point them in that direction and just ask them to run everything by you before they purchase, just so that it still is cohesive. It might not be like someone managing every aspect like I do, but I think it's kind of the attainable way to do it, I guess.
Totally. I had a bride do this really, really well. She took like inspiration photos, just how you started out, like kind of picked some photos that she liked the energy of, the vibe of, and started her deck with those, and then put together like tons of different options. She was going for mismatched, but ended up actually doing solids. So she has a lot of bridesmaids. So again, like you said, you have a little bit more room for flexibility in terms of, you know, what gets thrown in there, and maybe if there are some like hero dresses or anything like that. But she did that really well. And I think the strategy was to set deadlines for the bridesmaids, like give me your first draft picks, you know, by this date, and then kind of like approve them and move the process along. So if you're someone who's organized in type A and you can sort of like manage that with your bridesmaids, I think that's really helpful as well.
I think too, there's a little bit more room for error with mismatched bridesmaids because you're not necessarily trying it on before you purchase it. It might be like ordering online, returning it, ordering something else online, returning it, etc. So I think just the sooner you can get on it, knowing that like things won't hit until the season before, I think you just need to be prepared if you're doing the mismatch look. It's going to take more effort. It's going to be more frustrating. But the reward like is worth it in the end, I think, personally.
For sure. For sure.
So before we wrap up here, Gabrielle, we just wanted to ask about like what your availability looks like. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Thanks. I am fully booked for 2022, but taking on 2023 brides and grooms and non-binary people right now. If you want to get in touch, the best way is to reach out via my website. There's a contact form. That would be great. I love DMs, but I will miss them every single time. So please email me. My website's GabrielleHurwitz.com.
Perfect. So again, we will be uploading this to our YouTube channel later this afternoon. Gabrielle, we cannot thank you enough for joining us. As a reminder,
my pleasure.
We appreciate it so much. And Gabrielle is located in LA and New York City. Maven House, we have planners all throughout New England, New York, and beyond. So if you have any questions, if you want to set up a consultation call with one of the Maven House planners, you can sign up for a spot directly on our website, which is just mavenhouse.com. You can reach out to us on Instagram, Mavenhouse_events. Each of the planners it's Lindsey_Mavenhouse or Sarah_Mavenhouse, etc. And again, Gabrielle, we just cannot thank you enough for joining us today. It's really been so much fun for me just to see this process. And I'm sure even for Sarah, you know, as a client, like everyone just like so loved. I mean, the Maven House girls could all talk about style and fashion all day. So I think that this was really fun for everyone.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. And Sarah, I'm glad we found you some options.
Oh my gosh, invaluable. Totally. So now tonight I'll be emailing all my girls and being like, here's your dress. Like, I'll subsidize. Well, thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.